Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Jan Mabey, and I am your worship associate today. I am joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, Beth Syverson, our director of music ministries, Karen Magoon Pearson, who is our director of religious education for children and youth, is at Camp de Beneful Pines this morning. But we would like to thank Elizabeth Kolscher for leading the religious education today. We would also like to recognize the many volunteers that are helped put this service on today. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on a Hachiman and Tongva land. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together, not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regards to the traits that sometimes divide people. To our roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phones. For our Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat. And I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you're seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. Later in the service, we will have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you'd like to do so. We begin our worship with the lighting of the chalice, and this morning I'd like to invite John Kaiser up here to help me light this chalice. John and his wife have been a member of the church for a year now, and he enjoys hiking and leading hikes about once a month in his free time. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to open with a song by Unitarian Universalist composer Joyce Poley. It's called Keepers of the Earth. We haven't sung it for a little while, and we're going to sing it first with the verse forest, but in subsequent verses, you're all going to provide me a 2 to 3 syllable plant name, because this service is going to be mainly about plants today. So some plant that you love, or tree or flower or something like that. So we'll start with forest, and then y'all are going to help me. So be thinking. We are blessed by every forest. Every forest makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every forest feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth. So instead of forest, what other plant should we put there? All right, I heard cannabis first. It is a very fine plant. We are blessed by every cannabis. Every cannabis, it helps a lot of people. Makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every cannabis feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children. And I heard poppy, although I think it's not drug related, but just the California poppy. They're very beautiful flowers. I don't know where this is going. We are blessed by every poppy, by every poppy. Every poppy makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every poppy feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth. All right, one more plant. Eucalyptus. I gotta take my boss's words first. Okay. Eucalyptus. We are blessed by every eucalyptus. Every eucalyptus makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every eucalyptus feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the
Only in a UU church. I love you guys. Let's begin this morning by these wise words by the wonderful Denise Levertov. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We've only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet, not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt that we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. So we have a time for all ages today, although if you notice that we don't have any children here this morning because they're all up at the elementary camp up at Camp DeVenable. I think there's also a few in the nursery as well. But our time for all ages today, I think you'll all really enjoy. A couple of years ago, in honor of World Environment Day, the United Nations commissioned this poem and video. It's an animated poem exploring how COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us of the importance of living in harmony with nature, and it's narrated by the wonderful Jane Goodall. So this is the story of what happened when we all stopped.
It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. As gentle as sunlight, as tenacious as hail, in its route to the heart, it could not but prevail. And the people looked up from their day-to-day tasks, their day-to-day jobs, and their day-to-day masks. They heard, or they felt, where the whisper could lead, and they looked with eyes wide at what that might mean. And once they could see it, they hadn't a chance to resist the sweet song of the deep spell it cast. But the feeling it brought them at first glance was pain, as they lifted their eyes on the land they had claimed, since they saw at last, as if raised from a dream, they were almost alone on the land and the sea. But the trees had almost gone, and the bees had almost gone, and the creatures in their shells by the seas had almost gone, and the people felt sad as they saw their new earth, but they knew this was it, one wild chance for rebirth. Breaking new ground, seeds rolling down, smell of the earth on your hands and your brow. No time for sorrow, we're building tomorrow. The sound of things growing now keeps us around. As the wildness grows and the deep wood grows and the sense that the future's come to meet you grows, there's no chance we can rest. We must do our best. This moment can lead us back home. That's our test. It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. It then spoke like thunder until we all moved, and we could, and we did, and it's done. She's renewed.
Well, as I mentioned, our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth, Karen Magoon-Pearson, is up at Camp DeVenable this weekend, but Elizabeth Kilshore is going to light the children's chalice. She's filling in for her. I don't know that we have any children to sing out, but we can sing out Elizabeth. Would you like to be sung out? If there's nothing else to be done, we could just sing. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
We could think of this as the children in the nursery. But
That's
we
true.
could say stay. Let's say stay.
Huh? Our inner.
We'll do in our love as you stay, as you stay. May your heart be at peace as you stay. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you stay.
May you all stay and be held in love. So our reading, I don't know, I need to find another word for this, is this wonderful video. Some of you may have seen it years ago. It's about how wolves change rivers. It explains something called trophic cascades, that all life is connected and any change to the web of life affect all other species. This actually was remastered, and so they've got new footage and everything, so I thought we might look at this. It's absolutely wonderful. It was first came out 10 years ago, and it's still appropriate today.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was a soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Pretty cool, huh? So I want to invite you, in a moment of meditation, to think about, either from this movie or even from your own experience, what are the ways that we are interdependent in this world and the wildness around us. Please join me in a spirit of meditation to consider for just a few moments. When you're ready, please join Beth in singing.
Mother Earth, beloved garden, living treasure underfoot. All our days you ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root. Herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. With the pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now. Father Air, your inspiration holds together all that lives. As we breathe, our minds see clearly, leading us to love and give. Raging whirlwind, whispered breezes, violent gale and gentle cloud. With a blade as sharp as morning east, we ask you be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts your warmth revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle blood within us, blazing desert will to grow. With the wand directing power south, we ask you be here now. Sister water ever flowing, ocean, river, pond and lake. Drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse as we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all that courage will allow. With the cup, the holy chalice bliss, we ask you be here now. Lover, spirit, intuitions in the center of our souls. In your love we find relation, all connected we are whole. Timeless mystery, quiet conscience, deep it fires voice inside. With the drum and with the cauldron, this we ask, be our guide.
How many here have been to Morro Bay? A lot of you, yeah. So many people have raved about Morro Bay to me that a few years ago I decided to go up there and take a little vacation, and it really is an absolutely gorgeous area. And while I was walking around down by the beach, I remember seeing this plant, particularly the yellow one there on the right. And I remember thinking I felt like it was like this little burst of sunshine coming out of the ground, and I thought, oh, how pretty. I had been looking for kind of a ground covering for a small patch in front of my townhouse, and I thought this would be perfect. So I took this picture, hoping a nursery would help me find it. And later, I saw a similar flower all along the cliffs with just a different color. And I was just like, wow, it must be native to this area. How cool. And I remember going to a number of nurseries and finally found one that knew what it was, but they didn't sell it. She said, it's called an ice plant, and we don't sell it here. And I remember she kind of looked at me kind of oddly. So I looked it up. And it's also referred to as the highway ice plant. And the reason it is because Caltrans has planted this all along the highways, making for beautiful ground covering. But it turns out that this is completely invasive. And it's one of the worst, in fact. That's why I saw it all over Morro Bay. It drives out the native plants, smothers them even, and it grows incredibly easily, even on sand. It's gotten so ubiquitous that there's no getting rid of it, there's only trying to stop its proliferation. But we often kind of do this, don't we? We're like, oh, that's pretty. I'm going to put that in my garden. And I'll be honest, that's how I've pretty much shopped for plants for my little patch in front of my house. But what's interesting, I was looking on website at statistics and everything, and I found that 90 to 99% of plants in Orange County are non-native plants. 90 to 99%. And if you look for them, there are other really pretty native plants. For example, they could have actually planted purple sage. It's a great replacement for the ice plant. In fact, it's recommended. Now, non-native plants are usually defined as plants that arrived along with European settlement or after it. Now, I also want to point out that plants do evolve and change, and not all plants brought into this country are horrible, but because these plants evolved within certain ecosystems, right, within a certain environment, there were ways of keeping that plant in check from where it originally came from, right? Whether it was certain insects that ate it, or animals, or whether it was the weather or the terrain, whatever it is. But often invasive species no longer have these natural boundaries to them. And so they come in and they take over. They don't have a natural sort of predator, as it were. And they kill or limit the resources of the native plants, which in turn affects the wildlife and geography around it, just like the wolves affect things. Now, certain plants and animals have what's called an ecological niche. And it basically means whatever the conditions in which the plant, the animal, or any biological entity can survive, the food, the weather, the altitude, the predators, but it's also the impact that that species has on the environment, okay? Now, some animals have a huge, wide-ranging niche, right? Humans, we can pretty much settle anywhere. And some have a very, very small niche or small habitat in which they can survive. It turns out that California, I've been learning a lot about California, belongs to actually one of 36 biodiversity hotspots around the world, okay? Now, a biodiversity hotspot is an area with high levels of places where species can only exist in that one area, and their habitat is about to be lost. Or one of 36. And in particular, California has the highest density of plants that have specific niches. Now you might be asking yourself, it's a plant. What does it matter if a simple plant here or there goes away? That's all it is. But Paul Ehrlich, who's a sort of a biologist, he's sort of famously sort of put out this metaphor that basically said native species, whether they're plants or anything, it's like rivets in a plane. And we keep taking out these rivets out of the plane, and we don't know when is the last rivet that is going to make that plane fall apart, our whole ecosystem. It's sort of scary to think, what is the last rivet? Now, one of the answers to this potential ecological disaster is something that's called rewilding, okay? Rewilding is usually about the introduction of predators to an area that's been eradicated by humans as we move into the area, which we saw, for example, the wolves into Yellowstone, right? I also want to note that there's talk about bringing grizzlies back to California. After all, it's actually on our flag, right? That there's a grizzly and they're completely extinct here in California, right? The idea is to keep the entire tropic cascade, right? Not just part of it, to keep the rivets in the airplane, as it were, right? Now, tropic cascades are kind of like a pyramid. You might want to think of it so you've got the predators at the top and then the next one's down all the way down to the grasslands. But the reality is that actually tropic cascades also go up, right? We need also that large base of plants as well. That's part of it. Every single part of the cascade needs to be into there. That's where the interdependence is, whether it's from the top down or the bottom up or the middle out. They're not just about the top predators, or at least they shouldn't be. Now, rewilding, as it's known in sort of among biologists, requires usually large swaths of land, which isn't always possible. But as these wild natural spaces disappear, it becomes increasingly necessary to look at our yards, our parks, our green spaces in our cities as places of refuge for biodiversity in our area. So let me give you an example of what we can do here in Southern California. This is California white sage. It is native to Southern California, northern Baja area, and it grows nowhere else in the world in the wild. Nowhere else, okay? It has a very limited niche and habitat. And the Tongva and Ahashiman native peoples have been using this plant for sacred ceremonies for millennia, particularly in the practice of smudging. Does everybody here know what smudging is? Anybody? All right, I'm going to explain just for smudging first. So smudging is the practice of cleansing the body and soul with the smoke of a sacred plant. It can be used to cleanse places and also implements that's used in rituals. And interestingly enough, smudging has become a worldwide fad. And unfortunately, California white sage is at the center of this fad. It is the go-to smudging plant. The media and social media have, for whatever reason, not really looking into it, focused on California white sage as the way to smudge, even when there are so many other options. In fact, if you Google smudging, which is what I did, just about, I'd say probably 90% of the pictures that come up are of California white sage. You can even buy white sage smudging kits on Amazon, right? Now, people inaccurately associate white sage with all native peoples and native traditions, but really it's only the Ahashiman and Tongva who have traditionally used this particular plant. Other native traditions use other plants such as sweetgrass or cedar. But smudging, the act of purifying with smoke, is in many different religions and many different religious traditions. We don't need to use white sage. In Catholic and Orthodox traditions, right, they use incense like myrrh and frankincense, and pagan traditions use rosemary and thyme. There are lots of different ways to smudge. But the media would have us believe, and again, I don't think they're out there trying to, get on white sage, but they just, smudging must be white sage. They have us believe that it's only white sage. And if you look up white sage smudging, you'll find tons of articles by various people and organizations, everything from health magazines, this is how you smudge, white sage, yoga studios, white sage, right? Everybody's encouraging smudging with white sage. It's kind of crazy. You're like, did you not know that there's these other things you can do? And because of this popularity, white sage now is being decimated here in Southern California, okay? This has led to its illegal harvesting. When looking at where to buy white sage, you might see words like it's wild crafted or wild harvested. Yeah, that's a euphemism for poached. And I looked up those words, it's all over Etsy. If you're going to use, most white sage, in fact, is being illegally from private or public lands. If you decide you want to use it, look for ethically sourced white sage. Now, for the Ahashiman and Tongva people, this plant is more than just ceremonial. For them, it's a relative, it's family. And they only take a few leaves at a time very respectfully. Poachers, on the other hand, cut off entire branches or rip out the entire plant out of the ground. It's gotten so bad that even nature preserves are being targeted. So if you believe smudging with white sage is supposed to get rid of bad energy, what does it mean if you have white sage that has been ripped out of the ground and comes with its own bad energy? So, the Orange County, California Native Plant Society is on a mission, all right, to educate people on this endangered plant and to get everyone to plant white sage in their garden to nail a rivet back into that airplane, right? It's a Sage in Every Garden campaign. And the cool thing is that sage is pretty, it's aromatic, it's good for the native species, and what's really good for me is that it's easy to grow. And to that end, the Native Plant Society is here today, and you can take away your very own white sage plant to put in your garden, or your kitchen window, or your planter. I've got mine, it's doing great. I want to thank Tracy Doshbach. She brought this concept to me and said, hey, can we do something? Can we bring this here and educate people? I'm like, awesome, that sounds wonderful. So Zoomers, if you want a white sage plant, put it in the chat, and Tracy and I will figure out a way to get it to you, okay? The chat should be open. If not, put it in the end of Joys and Sorrows. All right. The other thing is, if you want to learn more, there's a bunch of information outside. There's a whole thing about different California plants that you can look and see what is pretty and will grow in your garden. There's a whole thing on white sage and all of what's being done on it. And then, of course, you can also sign up for the Orange County Society for Native Plants. Now, many of you know that I'm a shamanic practitioner, and I do smudge. It never occurred to me, never once, until Tracy introduced me to all of this, that white sage was particular to Southern California. I just thought it was everywhere. It never occurred to me it was only particular down here. I had no idea that it was endangered. I had absolutely no clue. But I can tell you that I will personally no longer use white sage, both in respect to the plant and to the Ahashiman and Tongva. And I encourage you to think about something different too if it's part of your practice. I personally think I am going to try myrrh. I thought that would be kind of cool. At any rate, we humans, of course, are the most invasive species on this planet, right? We invade just about every habitat and go into almost any environment. As the top predatory species on this planet, we are the ones who decide whether to pull a rivet out of our ecological airplane or try to put one back in. You know, it's not always easy to know what do we protect, what do we let go of. We have become sort of the gardeners of the earth, as it were, the keepers of the earth, as we sang. For better or for worse, it's up to us to use our power in a healthy way. Jane Goodall, in her book, Reason for Hope, she explains why she has hope for our planet. She says, "My reasons for hope are fourfold. One, the human brain. We're pretty smart. We can hopefully figure this out. The second is the resilience of nature. It'll go on whether or not we're here. The energy and enthusiasm that is found or can be kindled among young people worldwide. Amen. And for the indomitable human spirit. We can make this happen. And I believe that too. We can do this. We can create a plane with enough rivets and a safe world for all species. Each of us can begin to rewild our own little part of this earth. And I encourage you to learn more about the beautiful native plants to this area as you landscape your homes. In fact, Nancy and I has already been starting talking to Elizabeth at the Native Plant Society about what we can do here when we re-landscape and build our new sanctuary. You know, our native plants are in peril. They are besieged by human expansion, invasive species, and climate change, just to name a few things. So for our ending song, I would like us to do a kind of call and sung response. We'll do this with this song, so let us begin by singing.
So this is a new song by a Lutheran named Brett Hessla from Minnesota, and I thought this song just matched perfectly with what we're talking about today. We'll start it out with Amelia playing it, and then we'll sing it, and then it will go back and forth between a reading and this chorus. Join me. There are gardens waiting to be planted, and green hearts longing to be born. There are healings yet to be imagined, and wild fields waiting to return.
Let us recognize that the healing of the earth will involve us doing what we know how to do, planting gardens healthy for all, creating green policies, letting go of harmful habits. Let us lift up the gardens waiting to be planted.
There are gardens waiting to be planted, and green hearts longing to be born. There are healings yet to be imagined, and wild fields waiting to return.
Let us recognize that the healing of the earth will involve generations yet to be born. And let us lift up the green hearts yet to be born and the earth that they will inherit.
There are gardens waiting to be planted, and green hearts longing to be born. There are healings yet to be imagined, and wild fields waiting to return.
Let us lift up the wild places waiting to return, the healing we receive when we visit those wild places, and the healing that they need from us.
There are gardens waiting to be planted, and green hearts longing to be born. There are healings yet to be imagined, and wild fields waiting to return.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OC-UUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half our plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we're sharing our plate with Tiny Pine Foundation. Living in California, we're all aware of the dangers of fire to our natural habitat and people's homes that live close to nature. Tiny Pines builds tiny homes for those people affected by the fires. The total cost to build these homes is $9,000, and with your help, they can provide these homes to most in need. You can find out more on their website at tinypinefoundation.org. There are multiple ways in which you can support the church and this organization. You can mail a check, you can go through our website, use an app called Vanco Mobile, or send a check. The choice is yours, and all the information is on the website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
let us sing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share. Together we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Well, you are invited, one and all, whether you're a member, a friend, visitor, to participate in this weekly ritual that we call Joys and Sorrows. And the idea behind it is if you hold something close to your heart in the last days, weeks, or even hours, you are welcome to honor it by coming forward and lighting a candle if you would like to do so. If you'd like to share it with the community, you can write it on a slip of paper that the ushers have. If you didn't already do it when you first came in, and when you come forward to light your candle, just hand that to me and then I'll read them out loud. If you're on Zoom, you can write yours in the chat. Lori Kluge, who is our pastoral care associate, inviting her up here, and she'll help light a candle, and she'll light a candle for our wonderful Zoomers. So, and I want to let you know, Zoomers, I got all of your things about the white sage plant, and I'll see if I can hold on to them for next week for you. So, please come forward, light your candle, and then we'll read those out loud. Oh, wonderful. So Corey B would like a candle of joy lit, and he said one of his friends, following biopsies, found out that he did not have cancer. Yay. Corey says, this was wonderful news for someone who has other health difficulties. I'm so glad. Marilyn would like a candle of gratitude. She says, I have now completed 4 weeks of her cancer treatment regime and able to tolerate fairly well, other than being very fatigued by the afternoon of each day. She says, I appreciate all the rides and support that she's received from everyone here. That's Marilyn G. Peggy says she would like a candle of joy lit. She says, I wanted to plant white sage for some time now, and now I can. Yes, you can. And Kathleen M. would like to light a candle of sorrow. She says, as she adjusts to life without Mark, who Mark, as you know, passed away recently. She says, I am encouraged by the many items I was able to pass along to Stand Up for Kids and other nonprofits. And Sarah J., who is our administrator, she says she has a joy. She says, I am reminded this week of the amazing value of friendships and that I have many. Aw. And Barbara S., who's, has had a horrible broken leg, she said, my doctor gave me permission to put weight on my leg. Yay, I've been taking small steps every day. Yay. Let's see here. Hannah A., she would like a candle of hope, protection, and strength to encourage lawmakers to pass common sense gun laws and end mass shootings. Amen. And Phyllis D., she also would like a candle lit in remembrance of children killed in yet another school shooting. She says we must not forget. And Scotty says, please light a candle for our first embryo implantation after 2+ years of trying to get pregnant, and also for a friend who got a cancer-free biopsy as well. So that's wonderful. Yay, Scotty. Let's see, Catherine T. says, candle of thanks for the person who sent me a Valentine card last week with a handmade bookmark inside. It was unsigned but came from the Costa Mesa post office and brought me an unexpected moment of happiness. Oh, we got some lovely people here. All right, I think I got all of those online. And here in person, we've got a bunch of joys. Jan and Beth said the fun that we had last night at Joel and Jolene's reading of the play Picnic. They said great food and friendship was enjoyed by all. Right on. And Dave Carlson, who was ever proud of his son, who is a UU minister, he says he is lighting a candle of joy, he said, because they are celebrating 8 new members in, he says, in my son's UU church in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Awesome. And Kumiko has a candle of gratitude. She said, I would like to thank once again and express my gratitude to Craig. He has taken the time, this is Craig over here, he has taken the time to patiently solve my computer and cell phone problems in the world that I cannot do it all, always with a smile on his face, without even showing a single disgusted look on his face. These are a necessity and indispensable. Even if I ask my friends, they don't know a word. This is not the only thing. When I asked him, he replied and taught me, which is very helpful. I am forever grateful to him. Of course, the same goes for the introduction to this community. So yes, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Miko. All right, and Mifanwi Kaiser, she lit a candle of joy. Sarah Hunter actually gifted me 2 pillows for sitting on because her husband, as you know, Rob Hunter, passed away, so she brought those to me. And this morning, Mifanwi was saying how her back hurt, and I said, do you know about these wonderful pillows? And so now she has a pillow to sit on, and thanks for that, so yay. And Mary M. would like lit a candle of hope and forgiveness for her friend Alan Bell. And Elizabeth K., who came up and lit our wonderful children's chalice, she's light a candle of gratitude. She says, extremely grateful for the love and support of some of the OCUUC ladies this week after I had a really bad accident on Tuesday, where she was rear-ended. Definitely the other party's fault with an eyewitness. Glad you're okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sort of okay. Okay. We'll hug. That might help. Okay. Let us hold and love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, whether they were spoken or remain silent in our hearts. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer with one of my favorite poems by E.E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birth of life and of love and wings and of the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human, merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Amen.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're a congregation made up of people who all believe differently, and yet, when we're together, whether we are in a room or on Zoom, we make one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to either write in the chat if you're a Zoomer, or if you're a roomer, to stand for a brief moment, tell us your name and where you're from. We will bring a microphone over and hold it so that our Zoomers can hear who you are and where you're from. Do we have any guests? Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Mary, and
Hold on.
should I repeat?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, my name is Mary, and I'm originally from Michigan, 20 years in Seattle, and just made my new home in Irvine, and I'm happy to join the community.
Oh, welcome, Mary. Great to have you. Thank you. Do you have anyone else? Okay, I don't see any on Zoom. Okay. If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for our youth and children, please contact us at hello@ocuuc.org, and we will help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for a weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we'll help you get connected.
All right, announcements. Well, of course, we have the wonderful Orange County, California Native Plant Society here giving away white sage plants. Do not leave without grabbing your plant if you would like one. And I've got the Zoomers, as I said, I've got all of your lists here, and I'll either save them for when you're here next week or bring them to you. So Tracy and I will work on that. So thank you. We had a whole bunch of people like, I want one, I want one. So very cool. And also you can gather more information about it. This goes deeply into the whole white sage issue if you'd like to know a lot more about it. So the other thing I want to mention to you, actually we've got 2 save the dates I'd like to remind you of. One is on March 4th, is we have open mic night. All right, March 4th, open mic night. You can read a poem, you can read part of your writing, you can sing, you can play a musical instrument, you can tell jokes, whatever you would like to do. It's open mic night, and if I'm brave enough, maybe you'll hear an instrument with Phil and Susan who are going to do it with me. So we'll see. We'll see if I actually do it. It's only a few weeks away. Oh my God. Okay. So the other is update, as I sent out an email about this, so look in your thing, but please save the date for March 11th. For those of you who knew Mark Renshaw, at 2 p.m. we will be having a memorial here for Mark. And please give Kathleen a big hug online. She's actually our host today online. Oh, all right. My last words today is, everybody, let's go wild. All right? And let us sing.
Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference This service is over. Let our service continue.